Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of my YouTube video. I remain Odile Joseph Ememona, and this is another episode of Today we're going to talk about the recent book I read, which is titled The Shadow King. I don't know if you all have read that book. That book is a very good classic. It talks about a king who is kind of has an invincible, or rather a visible but not solid, and then a solid state. He's a king who they call the Shadow King. Okay, so the story about the Shadow centers about a certain time a particular king had so much enemies and they wanted to kill him, and he felt helpless and he cried to the gods and nobody answered him. Then he cried to the devil, and the devil then responded by giving him shadows, a power to remain eternal, to live for as long as he wanted. Nobody could kill him. Nobody would ever be able to kill him as long as he always stayed in his shadows. So the shadows had a limiting power. The limiting power about it was that the moment he touched somebody while in the shadow form, or rather out of the shadow form, he couldn't ever return to the shadow form in the presence of that particular person, which means he wouldn't be able to take his spouse. So many kings after the first king did not take his spouse until for a very long time, probably 300 years. So this is a king called King Callias. Okay, so King Callias, when his parents were murdered, he was forced to become king. Although he had an older brother that was probably murdered. Yes, during this story, his older brother was murdered, and then Callias was the only one left of the family to inherit the throne. He did inherit the throne, and he loved his power, but he had counselors. He had a board of directors that would not hand over power to him until he was of age, and before he became of age, they wanted him to have a wife. But here's Callias, who doesn't trust anybody, doesn't really want a wife, drove 3 of his best friends away from him. He doesn't want a wife, but then he had to pick one just to suit the council, because once the council rules against him, they have as much power as he does, so he had to please the council, and so he got a wife. Now, on the day of the ball where he would select a wife, so many girls came, but there was a particular girl, Alessandra. Alessandra is, I would say an opportunist, but a determined opportunist. She saw the opportunity to become the queen. She got the determination to become the queen, and then she ruled with it. So she came to the palace sorting as every other person, every other maiden in the kingdom, to become the queen. But the twist about the story is that while trying to seduce the king, and trust me, you will learn a lot of seduction skills from reading this book. Try it. So when she came to the palace, in the process of trying to seduce the king, she fell in love with him. She, as her aim was, seduce the king, become queen, poison the king, and then take the throne. So she took this particular book. It's a book containing so many poisons, and she kept it hidden in her room. Now, when she came to the palace the first day, while all maidens were wearing different fashionable attires, she decided she wanted to wear a particular fashion that was not very common in their society, and so she took on a different fashion, a different color, something that was so unfeminine but yet kind of feminine, and totally out of the scope of their kingdom. So the plot around the story revolves that the king fell in love with her. They both fell in love with each other. They became best friends before they became lovers, and the king didn't mind anymore, and then he allowed her to touch him, or rather he wanted to touch her and she didn't even want him to touch her, because she felt he became her protection. He became the reason why she would have a say. She didn't need to kill him anymore, because if he was alive, he was much more valuable to her. She would get anything she wanted as he was alive than when he's dead. So she didn't want to kill him anymore. She wanted Callias to remain king. So in the process, everything kept going on and about, and at the end of the day, they fell in love with each other, and there was betrayal. Betrayal when Callias discovered that he doesn't trust people very well, but he trusted Alessandra. So to discover that she wanted, a real intention of coming to the palace was to kill him and take the throne. He stabbed a wound to his heart, and he sent her away. He sent her away because he couldn't kill her, he couldn't harm her, he couldn't do anything to her. So he sent her away to live somewhere else. While she was trying to go, she met a friend in the palace before now. This friend's name is Leandros. Leandros had been Callias' best friend. There were 3 best friends that Callias pushed away, I said earlier. That's Leandros, Petrus, and Reuben. So Well, Leandros had been Kalaya's best friend for the longest time, but when he assumed the throne and his parents were murdered, he couldn't trust anybody anymore, so he pushed everybody away. Leandros now befriended Alessandra, and he loved her actually. Hey God. But like, the story is so enticing that when Alessandra came to the palace, every guy wanted to be with her. You know, I learned something. Once one man wants you, two men wants you, oh my God, you become center of attention. Every man wants you. Especially when the most important man wants you, then every other man wants you. You don't have to be beautiful, you don't have to be hot. You just have to get the attention of the most important person. And that's what Alessandra did. Alessandra wasn't as very beautiful as her sister Cristanta. And she hated this, that she wasn't as beautiful as her sister. But she didn't let herself be fooled. She was wiser than her sister. She didn't sit complacent with the idea that she wasn't as beautiful as her sister. And she had led a life that was so promiscuous. Yeah, she slept with so much men. But let's not call it promiscuity, because the point is, she had slept with people. It was freedom, sexual freedom, liberation. You can sleep with whoever you want, can't we? Yes, and as many times as we want. But in this kingdom, she was insulted for sleeping with so much people, and so she tried to hide that fact when she came to the palace. Only to come to the palace, she made friends with Leandros, and then made friends with a certain idiot called Myron. Myron is the same ex, or let me not say ex, the same lover, the last lover she had before she came to the palace. And while this guy was entranced by her, it was all over her. He presented her with a ring and she rejected him. So while he was bitter about his rejection, he met her in the palace and then wanted to expose her. And then he said something to one of the leaders council, and this people came up to Alessandra, started questioning her that her character wasn't as impeccable as they thought. And I love what Alessandra did. I love how she displaced. You don't push your enemy to the side and ignore them. You crush them completely. That's what I learned. So if you're going into 2023, please learn to crush your enemies completely, utterly, without pity, or no, don't let your plans be compromised because somebody somewhere thinks that they're better or they deserve you. Nobody deserves you until you think somebody deserves you. You are the one that deserving of yourself. So let nobody make your plans go to rubbish because they want you for themselves. You can't want me for yourself alone. I choose to either let you be for me alone, or we agree that we are for each other. I think that's best. So no. So she crushed Myron completely. Oh my God, that part was hot. It was hot. And then the part I loved the most was the part where Alessandra had to save the king on countless occasions, with the part with the assassin, and the part where she had to save him from the young girl, the part where she had to save him when they were taken to the brothel. And I like how strong she is. No matter how promiscuous we've become, how we frolic with people, some of us still have respect for ourselves. Most of us still have respect. This story is so beautiful. You should read it, especially the end when Kalaya's came to his mind. He sent I wish out. I not used to do that part. After they catch my auntie with the poison in her bag, they just sent her away from the palace. And when she left, she stayed with her friend for a while. But after that time, she wanted to get her own apartment, was already making preparations to get her own lodge before Kalaya's came back and took her away. I wish that was Tricia. And I also wish the story didn't end. I don't know why the story ended. I really don't know why. There should be a second part of Shadow King. Tell us how Kalaya and Alessandra made out, how they began to love each other. You didn't tell us how they had sex. You didn't tell us how they made out one time. You didn't tell us what happened to them, what happened to their beautiful kids, if they had any, and all of that.